Hello everyone, welcome to another enlightening episode of Beewellwithms podcast, your ultimate guide to living well with multiple sclerosis. I'm your host, Dr. Agnes Trokiana. I'm thrilled to bring you a unique conversation on MS and brain health that you don't want to miss. In today's episode, we're sharing a recorded session from a recent MS charity event where we had an engaging discussion on nurturing brain health when living with MS. The event was brilliantly chaired by a phenomenal woman who's not just an inspiration to the MS community, but to everyone who knows her as Louise. Terry is a multiple sclerosis fighter, advocate, and educator. She was a National Diversity Award nominee in 2023. But her dedication goes beyond her own personal journey. With over 15 years of experience leading business operations, Terry has a knack for utilizing innovation assessment techniques and gathering key insights to drive scalable, data-driven business solutions. From the boardroom to battling MS, Terry's determination and passion for making a difference are truly inspiring. This recorded event showcases Terry's commitment to the MS community and her ability to enlighten, educate, and empower. The presentation on MS and brain health is not only informative but very interactive, with a dynamic questions and answer session towards the end. So whether you are newly diagnosed, a long-term fighter, a caregiver, or just someone wanting to learn more about MS, this episode has something to offer you. So sit back, grab a coffee or tea, or lace up your walking shoes, and let's dive into this empowering conversation on brain health and multiple sclerosis. Stay tuned and let's get started.
Welcome to MS and Brain Health. My name is Louise and I'm the CEO and founder of Talks with MS. As most of you know, we do these webinars in collaboration with the MS Society for the Black community and our allies, because it's important when we talk about diversity inclusion, we are included also. Today, I am joined by the amazing Dr. Agnes Trokiana, who is going to take us through a session of education. She's going to be speaking to us about MS and brain health and all the different factors that play into this, and we're going to have a fun time. So I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to give the floor over to Dr. Agnes, and don't forget, it's an interactive session, so please put your questions in the chat and there'll be space for questions and answers at the end. Over to you, Dr. Agnes.
Hello, everyone. I'm a neurologist. I'm coming here to talk to you guys, and I'm off duty at the moment. I finished my MS clinic just an hour ago, and I'm here as a friend, as a sister, maybe for youngsters, as a mother, sharing my knowledge, my information, and of course, I'm influenced by day-to-day clinical activity, and as neurologist, my special interest is multiple sclerosis, and I have been doing MS work since 2009. I know I do look young, but that's a reality, and I become MS service lead at Torbay and South Devon NHS Foundation Trust in 2016. That was a time when I was appointed as a consultant neurologist, and I've been working since, so it's more than 7 years. Today, we are going to talk about very important topic, brain health and living with MS, and how to achieve and maintain the optimum level of the brain health. What is the balance? What's the brain balance? This is a hot topic in the world in general, and I actually attended and presented to 500 people audience, my healthcare colleagues and providers, at one of the European Association of Neurology meeting, where we discussed the brain health. And we tried to understand, is it just a buzzing word? Is it brain health in neurological specialties, or it's really something that we all should focus as a specialist and figure out how can we best help people living with a chronic condition, any neurological condition, to be honest, from Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis. And brain health is a fundamental to good health across the life course of individuals, starting from women being pregnant, having a good care of health because of the fetus development process. As a toddlers and kids and adults, we go into adolescence and adults, how we cope, what do we do to actually help ourselves? And not necessarily you need to have a disease to look after your brain health. But most importantly, if you live with conditions such as multiple sclerosis, the ability to look after the brain is super important, because that will allow you to thrive, and everyone else in the world should pursue for health and well-being throughout the entire life. So there are a couple initiatives, not many. It's emerging field, it's very new field in general, and there are some Scottish brain health research strategy program and healthy brain initiatives in America, Germany, Poland, Finnish, Norwegian, national brain health strategies. So everyone is around, sitting around the table and considering how can we improve education and general health to maintain the brain health in general. And it comes at the level of the governance and the policy makers. So for those who are very new in MS and who maybe have people who you live with who's got MS, or maybe you're a friend of somebody who's got MS and you don't in particular know what this condition is all about, it's a chronic condition that involves an immune system attack against the central nervous system. You can see the axon, which has got a myelin. It's like a little cover that improves the signaling coming from the brain via nerves and neurons. And synapses, which is a connection between the neuron, and then with the process of demyelination, which is a common process, a pathogenesis of multiple sclerosis, the axons become naked and the signaling slows down. So as a consequence, people suffer with visual problems, muscular problems, cramping, pains and aches, fatigue, cognitive problems, depression, anxiety is part of living for large chunk of people living with MS. I mean, digestion problems, bladder, bowel. I never met anybody the same. Everyone is so different and unique, and everyone presents with the different neurological symptoms. I always use this analogy to describe what happens in people's brains. Is imagine it's a heavy, busy traffic, and if there is a plaque, a lesion that sits on the brain, it obviously disrupts the signaling, the pathway, and the brain slows down in producing an adequate function, whether it's a sensory or motor function. So equally, the busy traffic of occlusion, whether it's people on the roads or some sort of an accident that blocks that proper flow of cars moving forward and backward. There are different types of MS as they are officially listed and approved. So whether it's relapsing remitting, primary progressive, secondary progressive, or progressive relapsing, there are different types. But I just want to tell you that MS is just one disease. At the very molecular biology level, there is no difference between these types, and the actual the classification has been influenced by FDA and pharmaceutical companies to classify these diseases, that people could get better access to disease-modifying therapies, because they couldn't treat everyone with advanced disease to achieve a good quality in life, or stability of the disease, or slow down the progression. If it's very advanced disease, is very, very challenging. All the processes are being done the early as we can, and we all talk about the early interventions in starting disease-modifying therapies, or combining that with a healthy lifestyle at the very beginning of the process is when we achieve the best results and slow down the progression of MS. So it's a global problem, living with MS. The numbers are increasing. Every MS service has got increasing prevalence by 10% of newly diagnosed every year. And if you're female, that's very unlucky, because there is a much higher chance, 3 times more common to develop MS if you're a female. And if you have a first degree relative, so it's around max 5% higher chance of developing multiple sclerosis. And if you're from twins, 25%, around 25-30% chance of getting MS if your twin sister or brother has got it. And It's very much depends where you live. The further to equator, northern countries have larger prevalence of multiple sclerosis. So we look at the anatomy of the brain in general, and that's the reason why we're here to discuss how can we best prevent the brain. So there are white matter and gray matter in the brain. There are various different other structures deep inside the brain, ventricular system, nucleus, and that comes as a thalamus and putamen, brainstem, limbic system, which is our emotional brain, amygdala, hippocampus, our memory. And there are some very small, tiny structures, which is neurons that forms the connection with other neurons. There are active neurons, inhibitory neurons that they communicate with each other. It's around 85 billions of neurons in our brain. So even if you have a few lesions in the brain, just think, and I always say to my patients, think about the rest of the brain that is still healthy. It hasn't been affected by MS, So how can you preserve that? And if we look at the brain and imagine this is a topography that comes from the Stephen Krieger, one of the colleagues of mine in America. So imagine that these peaks are focal lesions and the brain has got a capacity and reserve. It's like a water tank. The more we waste, the more we wait and not seek some help in not getting some treatments in the right time. So the reserve is being wasted and the capacity to recover after the relapses, of course, is going to be diminished, and there is a clear feature of progression over the time if things are not being done in the right time and the right things, such as adjustment of the lifestyle and how we navigate through to keep the brain in a good balance and health. There are so many disease-modifying therapies. I'm not going to go into too detail here. The start of the disease-modifying therapies and when they were launched is 1993. Since there are a few more new drugs that are licensed to use in multiple sclerosis to reduce the activity, to slow down the process of progression, and to preserve the brain health. And if we look at the MS management, it's like looking at the London's underground map. Loads of things that we should cover in our clinics, starting from symptom management, relapse management, healthy lifestyle advice, and giving advice of giving smoking and doing some exercises, and looking at the response to the disease-modifying therapies and the side effects and what the bloods are showing. Are we too much immunosuppressing people with MS? Are we overdoing things or underdoing things? MRI scans and what the MRI shows and how many new lesions people develop. That's our day-to-day process, what we do in our clinics, and it's like a bread and butter for us. But it's very complex. It requires a lot of effort from both physicians and the patients. And if you look at the management pathways, they vary at different service, different country, they have different plans. But our main target that we have been following for the last decade or so, it's we focus on the NEDA. It's no evidence of disease activity. It's classed as no relapses, no sustained disability progression, no MRI scan activities. And then there are a couple more added factors such as neurofilament level, which is a biomarker, and brain atrophy that some of the services would measure and take that into account as a target to treatment. When we see patients in our clinic, they all come with some sort of expectation, and the reality might be different. Has numerous amount of patients coming with a long list of the issues that are happening in their lives, notebooks with the paintings and symptom listed activities on the notebooks. There is no time, to be honest, to assess that. So I might very much disappoint my patients that I say, look, I probably could do that after my clinic, not now, because there are so many aspects to cover in this clinic. And sometimes I look around, it's like, oh my God, I'm the only one that's making some solutions and trying to solve people's problems. But I think moving forward, we should work as partners, and we can't influence sometimes things, and we require some effort and commitment from your side as a patient or as a person living with MS. And it causes a lot of stress in general. Physical illness is something that is game changing in this life, and it can disrupt your sleeping. It can further impair the immunity and increase the activity and it's a bit of a vicious cycle, catch-22. Stress causes physical illness causes stress. It's non-stop, and then there's a consequence. People present with a depression and anxiety, which topping up on the top of the MS management is quite challenging. And sometimes we have to make some quite a deep investigations and understanding of single person to know how much of the depression and anxiety is playing the role in that particular person care plan, or how much of the MS, is a combination. So it's our problem as a clinicians to distinguish, differentiate, and find the best solution and management plan for that person that comes to see us. And if we look at the MS register data on MS and comorbidities, there's the other aspects that we need to tackle, because living with hypertension, high cholesterol, it really affects the brain further. It really causes more disability, less quality of life, and compromises the brain of health in general. So on the top of the white matter lesions that people develop as part of the MS disease, people also get vascular changes within the brain. So sometimes we see vascular changes, strokes, and hemorrhagic bleeds and blood and ischemic strokes on the brain beside the MS. So really getting it right, and this data suggests that the most common comorbidity that has been reported by people with MS to MS registry database is depression, high blood pressure, migraines, cholesterol. So it's very concerning aspect, and we should tackle that with the help of the primary care, as well as much as we can in our clinics. So what is the wellness that actually nourishes the brain health? What does that mean? After looking at the literature, it means different things to different people. Some people with MS think that the diet is the healthy living. Some people say exercises. Some people think meditation is the way forward, positive psychology, social connection, self-management, spiritual and religion, being independent physically and financially, and having healthy aging process. Some are more arty, and they think that art and music is complementing their care plans. So I think it's a combination of things, to be honest, and these are very important aspects to look after the brain health. So when we look at this stress individually, it's quite a challenge on our general health and the brain health. We age a bit more rapidly. We have more immune system activity. It produces problems with breathing, increases the heart rate, the blood pressure goes up. It's sluggish and slows down our digestive system. It metabolizes better glucose. We want to eat more, and there are some other behavioral problems that we struggle with the food. So it's a vicious cycle that is present, is day to day, so real life that we are experiencing, no matter whether you do have MS or not, and how to best manage the stress. So again, it's individual and personalized approach to manage the stress, whether you go and see the psychologist and have some therapy, whether going to spa or doing some exercises, or managing with hobbies, meditation, yoga, spending some time in nature and listening to the music, and navigating with your time, because time is plays a crucial role here, because we are busy and lives are hectic. So when we talk about the dieting, loads of on the internet, and it's difficult to know who to follow, Wall's diet, whether Atkins diet, or so many other overcoming MS diet. So many different solutions here, and it's very confusing. And some of the diets are really, really difficult to follow, as you probably tried and failed, and that. Imagine that your brain is 70% of fat. That's the anatomy. And fats actually control the balance of inflammation. So we need the fats, but the healthy fats that we need. And if we have a high cholesterol or triglycerides, which is part of the cholesterol panel, fat panel that we check in people and define the risk of the cardiovascular risk factors. So it doubles also, according to the research, the risk of relapses and activity. Obesity also is something that we try to avoid in people with MS, and try to tackle and address that, sending to various different weight management programs. And poor diet leads in other comorbidities that we discuss, whether hormone problems, metabolic problems, whether it's to do with a thyroid or blood pressure. And so far, the healthy diet in multiple sclerosis that we have emerging evidence, the best one is Mediterranean diet. Then it follows to ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. These are key diets that show some evidence that can improve and slow down the activity and progression living with MS. The microbiome is super important because it's almost like our second brain. It actually looks like a brain if you are looking at this picture now, and how can you stimulate the good bacteria in your guts, that really involves a colorful plate day to day. It involves a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, proteins that comes as a fish or meat, and if you are vegetarian, the main mistake that people become obese with being vegetarian, they expose themselves with too much fats, such as cheese and processed foods. So you really want to be very mindful and conscious about that. And quite often I notice from my MS clinics that people are not eating too much of the fermented foods, which is amazing, like kombucha and pickled vegetables, gherkins, for example. These are stimulants of the microbiome and good bacteria in the guts. And sometimes people take some good quality, good brands of the probiotics. It's something to consider. So what are the common features of MS-friendly diets? So they all are low in added sugar. They are low in carbs to reduce the weight. They are mainly leafy vegetables and fruits. That's the recommendation. Majority of the well-known in the world diets, we recommend that. Nuts and seeds, legumes, fish, and real organic meat. I would suggest that spending a bit of a time thinking about where you're getting the meat, which shopping center, and maybe exploring a little bit local farms, and investing a little bit of money in a good quality of meat is something to pursue. But then there are some economic solutions, getting some fish from a can, or some sort of mongus that's around, or maybe going fishing yourself and getting a good quality of fish for your day-to-day living. And healthy fats and oils. What oils do you use for cooking? Finding the right balance. The extra virgin oil, olive oil is the top one. Any vegetable oil, and not having a food that you overcook too much, used to oil too much. Again, heated oil can be harmful too. So you dilute that with the water, you get a bit of a steamy products, and then you can add the, say, extra virgin olive oil at the end if you like the taste of the oil. But avoid the superheated products, and fried products are not quite healthy, can cause more inflammation. So in other words, mindful shopping. When we go to the shopping center, loads of colors, loads of packages in a nice, attractive way that you just spontaneously grab things without thinking too much what you're getting for tonight, dinner or lunch. So being mindful shopper is the way forward. And just think about that when you have good quality, when you go to your mum's or you have really good quality food, it really makes you feel very good, and that's how you know that is really helping yourself. When you feel like sluggish, your energy drops, your fatigue increases, and if you measure what you record what you ate an hour ago, you know that it's probably a processed food, junk food, which doesn't give you any nourishment to your body. And food is very, very helpful for mental health. All the depression and anxiety, the more you expose junk food, processed food, it makes you feel sluggish, you have fatigue, you spend more time indoors, you're not social. It's a vicious cycle. You become depressed and anxious, and then with the lack of the good quality of food, you become physically ill. Let's talk about the sunshine. We are blessed these days. Over the last couple of days, we had a lot of sunshine, and that's a resource of the vitamin D. We all should be on vitamin D. Living in Britain, I think at least 1,000 international unit for healthy ones. But if you have an autoimmune condition, that goes up to 4,000 or 5,000. And looking at the history, the primates, they spend a lot of time outdoors. Obviously, their level of the vitamin D used to be much higher. Here in Britain, it's around 30-40 millimoles per liter, which is a bit of on the reduced side. And we should be exposing ourselves with vitamin D because we have busy lives. We don't spend time outdoors. Being a woman, we put a lot of makeup these days and SPFs on the face. We want to preserve this beauty and slow down the aging process, but unfortunately it blocks the sunshine. And then it depends on your skin color as well. The darker the skin, the absorption of the UVs is slightly diminished, and production of vitamin D in your body might be on the lower side. So as I mentioned, vitamin D level, again, the more you're far away from equator, the less vitamin D level we see in people's lives. So the evidence are compelling that it does have an effect in reducing disease activity. Although recently there were some publications that say it doesn't make any difference. However, it's really good for your bone health. And as living with MS, it involves sometimes taking steroids, a high dose of steroids on occasion. Sometimes people take it once a year, twice a year. So steroids weakens the bone carcass and requires some supplementation with the vitamin D. You get better absorption of the calcium via guts, and sometimes to prevent the higher dose of the calcium in the body, you want to take vitamin D3 with the K vitamin. That prevents accumulation of the calcium, which might be toxic if it's accumulated in soft tissue like muscles, etc. So make sure that vitamin D, when you buy over the counter or health shops or Amazon, that it comes in an oily formulation, because that's better absorbed than having a tablet of vitamin D, because you need more fats. If you already purchase tablet form vitamin D high dose, make sure that you take it with a food, with a fatty food, basically, after maybe dinner, if it is a heavy meal throughout the day of yours. So make sure that you take tablets with a meal. And of course, getting maybe checked the vitamin D level if you're not sure, and maybe if you find to have a low level, so rechecking. I know that there are some complexities getting the bloods done in a GP surgery, getting in contact with the GP. So I know all that. You don't need to tell me. I really hear you. I have the same struggle to get GP on the phone and get to chat with them, and they telling me that I'm classed as a healthy one. I should be having monitoring of vitamin D. Although I've done it in a different country privately, and I found I have low level. So I guess at least once in your life you need to get this checked just to see where you stand, in particular if you're not sure about. And I would like to tell you that bad sleep has got a really negative effect on your brain health, your performance. It affects your thinking, concentration, causes a lot of fatigue, accidents, and low mood and anxiety, and increase more stress. When you had a bad night's sleep, you really feel under the weather. It's really not helping you at all, because that's a restoring time of the brain. You dream, you rest, your muscles rest, and you get a lot of health. If you have normal, good sleep, it improves multiple functions throughout the day and reduces anxiety and stress, and calms you down and calms the immunity down too. So, meditation. This is something that I started doing myself in 2016, and I encourage everyone. I think living in this Western lifestyle and very stressful, everyone should know this practice and know how to do the meditation. Why? Because it's proven that it reduces stress and relapses of depression. Very powerful, strong data to support that. It reduces anxiety. It helps to manage stressful events. When you're going somewhere and or you are performing, or you're having busy time at work, before you go on the stage or perform, you really need to get that grounded technique and calm yourself down. That helps me. I meditated before coming to this meeting. It helps with the pain. and happiness. It improves the quality of life and can rewire a little bit your brain. How to meditate? You have to decide. You have to make your mind that this is okay. This is the time I need to spend some time to, that suits me and my lifestyle and my family life, maybe. And whether it's in the early morning when you wake up, or maybe it's midday or evening, doesn't matter. So you allocate that time for yourself. Don't expect that it's going to make a miracle in your life. Particularly when you start doing this, it feels very weird and not natural at all. Because your mind is really busy with the thoughts and feelings, and you go into the conversation, you build up more story, and that actually exaggerates your whole physical feelings in your body. You get a lump in your throat or chest, tightness and everything else, everything just messy. The key element is here that you need to meditate for at least 8 weeks daily, starting with a very short period of time. If you spend a few minutes and then you build up, you will notice over the time that you will more and more require time for yourself, just to do nothing. Whilst doing nothing, you're actually doing a lot of benefits to your brain, to your health and everything. So, and it's very, very powerful. Once you get into that, after 8 weeks, you actually form the habit, and it makes you feel much, much happier. And meditation is not just random woo-woo type science, that it's nothing to do with the Buddhism, although the strategies how the Buddhists living and performing in their lives, they do meditate a lot, but it's a science-driven process. And there is a Professor Richard Davidson who's done some research on the monks and people who never meditated. They found that actually brain changes after they've done a 10 minutes meditation practices, and it reduces the activity. So from red functional MRI scan, from red color, it goes into the sort of calmer colors, which is blue and green, on the functional MRI scan is proven, and actually changes the structure of the amygdala. It shrinks over the time. Amygdala is our emotional brain, where we, quickly respond and emotionally become affected by the life events. And then the amygdala has got connection with the prefrontal cortex, which is our executive function. We sort of think about what has happened to us, interpret, should we respond, should we not, so that's our sort of a higher cognitive function. And over the time, you expand the prefrontal cortex, it becomes more active region of the brain, and you're shrinking the amygdala, which is our primate brain, which, inadequately sometimes responds to the events and stimulus in this life. So you can calm down this sort of hijack the pathway within the brain. So I suggest that we maybe spend maybe a few minutes meditating, just simply as that, just to give you a bit of a taster. How does that feel, being in that sort of a mindful status? So let's maybe give it a go. So basically, you don't need to do anything. Whether you're sitting or lying on the sofa enjoying your evening, doesn't matter. Maybe you're on the floor, maybe it doesn't matter. Begin by finding a comfortable seated position. And if you can, close your eyes gently. If you can't, you can gaze your eyes to the floor and just bring your attention to your breath. Just take a deep breath in and slowly exhaling. As you breathe in and out, you know that you're breathing in and out. Just bring that focus on your breathing pattern. See what's going on, whether your chest expanding, whether your belly is rising. Now envision a bright light inside you. This light represents your inner strength and confidence, as we all have that. Maybe sometimes it's hidden somewhere. And as you breathe in, imagine this light growing brighter. And as you breathe out, let your doubts about yourself or anybody else fade away. Let this light fill you with each breath casting away any anxieties or worries. Maybe you were rushing to log in and finding the links and getting into the platform. Despite the challenges that MS might present, remember that you are much, much stronger than MS, and MS doesn't identify who you are. With each breath in, you're inhaling your confidence and strength. And with each breath out, you're releasing the fear and uncertainty. As we conclude this meditation, remember this sense of inner confidence. It's there. It's always with you, ready to guide you throughout any challenges. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes, keeping this feeling of strength and resilience with you. And as you move forward into your night or day, depends where you are. And just remember that meditation is a practice that you will grow easier and more potent with time. It really takes time. Just carry on this light of confidence as you just experienced. Okay, I feel that we all now grounded, a bit of a disruption, and we are now more receptive of other information that I'm going to share in a minute. So the power of the exercises. I can't tell you more how powerful and the most evidence we've got in multiple sclerosis that actually it changes the whole brain wiring activity. We call this process as neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is improving the connection of the existing neurons. They communicate with each other via synapses. They release the chemicals. They talk to each other. They send the signals. It's buzzing. It's all the time. And when you exercise, you're actually improving that neuroplasticity. You're rewiring how the brain works and what people should do. So the general recommendation would be to do some aerobics 2 to 3 times a week, whether it takes 10 minutes or 40 minutes. You actually start with a, short period of time if you've never done exercises. And whether this exercise for you is just walking around the block, it's good. It's good enough. The consistency, repetition, doing that regularly and maintaining that exercise regime, whether it's walking, cycling, swimming, yoga, Pilates, whatever you like, you really need to enjoy that, because that's when you're actually going to commit and you're going to continue doing. So, there are different strategies, how many repetition. On the average 15 repetition if you're doing some sort of lifting dumbbells, for example. And a few sets of it per exercise. You should carry on, 2 to 3 times a week. It's good enough. And also thinking about the higher cognitive function, we say use it or lose it. So the mental stimulation, having exposure of the new information, whether you're watching a movie, you're learning from documentary, whether you're reading books, whether you're learning a new language maybe, or doing some puzzle. It doesn't matter. Whatever you enjoy, keep stimulating. Maybe you want to play with your kids' Lego, for example, to keep stimulating your brain. And that's how you're rewiring and improving the function, the cognitive function, which comes from our gray matter. And it helps with the overall performance. And I can't tell you how important the social connection is in this life. If you're lonely and isolated, I know there are people, introverts, and they prefer to be, in the little corner, read the book, and that's fine. But still, having that connection with other people is super important. And I say to my patients that, loneliness and isolation is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's how harmful it is to the brain health, and general quality of life is, diminished. And there are so many other studies done that, people die earlier if they are lonely. So social connection, it's a superpower. Don't forget your medics, your healthcare providers, whether it comes as a MS nurse or physiotherapists or occupational therapists or consultants. I know GPs are very difficult, challenging to get hold of. It's fine, but finding the way to get in touch. There are numerous of ways, it's just being persistent and getting in touch and getting the checkups, to identify the potential health issues. Not necessarily as MS. It's not always is MS a problem, but there are some other, emotional problems, depression, anxiety, hypertension, cholesterol, thyroid problems, diabetes. Anything it really negatively influences the brain health, and it's really required a close checkup, and that's how you're going to improve. If you know what's going on, you're going to seek some help, and you will get there where you need to be. There are so many numerous ways of self-management and living with MS, and that may come as an app, for example. There are so many applications on the Google or iTunes. It's all about the documenting things, some gamification, some games that you can play on these apps. And some of the apps, it depends where you live, some of the self-management platforms that you can actually communicate with your GP. You can send a text message to your primary care physician or your multiple sclerosis team. So instead of writing things on the piece of paper or notebook, you maybe use the digital technology, these ways to measure and get ready for your appointments. And the top ones in the world, there's been assessed and documented in the literature: MS Care Connect app, MS Buddy, iPro Habit Tracker, and My MS Manager, Breathe to Relax, Lose It, Headspace. These are apps that are being commonly used to track the MS symptoms and get some help. So I'm nearly finished wrapping up. A healthy brain, maintaining a healthy brain is a dynamic process. It's an essential part of our overall well-being, and it happens throughout the whole life. Since the birth, being a kid, adult, and before you die, you should focus on that. And it involves proper nutrition, very rich, dense, nutritious products. Decluttering your kitchen is number one, what you need to do. Get rid of all these processed foods and get the right ones. Regular exercises, as we discussed, adequate sleep. There's different tactics, from guided meditation, having apps such as Beewellwithms, Calm, or Headspace that helps you to fall asleep. Mental stimulation to improve the cognitive function and to maintain the cognitive, social connection and interaction, stress management, regular checks by the healthcare providers are important. And this condition of multiple sclerosis, it requires focus on the brain health in general. The healthier your general health of your brain, the better the MS is going to behave. And that involves the right choices of your lifestyle to alleviate the symptoms of MS and improve your quality of life and contribute to overall well-being and brain health. And it needs to be an individual journey. One size does not fit all, and you really need to tailor that what you enjoy the most. Comprehensive, individualized approach combining medication, lifestyle, and regular consultation is crucial. And of course, we need ongoing research. Science continues to make strides in understanding the complexities of the brain health, MS, and how the lifestyle factors can influence disease activity and progression and brain health. We are somewhere. We are heading towards the wellness, and we have some emerging evidence to support this. And we just need to do even more. And MS can present numerous challenges. It's very unpredictable disease, as far as we all know, and it's very important to be educated well and be equipped with the knowledge that you could actually implement these proactive steps towards the brain health and bring that resilience in your life and positive outlook. And remember, we are all on the journey towards the better health. I never met anybody being super, super healthy and without any issues in this life. Everyone has got something, whether you live with MS or you don't have MS. Everyone is affected in one or another way. It's not about the perfection. It's not about, seeking to be wonderful, Mr. Wonderful. No, it's rather progress in making very small changes instead that can lead it to significant improvement over the time. So you should attack the alligator closer to your boat. So if you smoke, so probably it's going to be stopping smoking, and then looking into what else can you do to improve your lifestyle. And if you see a doctor and doctor is not asking you about your diet, sleep, exercise, water consumption, you're probably not seeing a doctor, it's somebody else. So really, as a healthcare providers, we should provide a more holistic care to people living with a long-term conditions such as multiple sclerosis. Thank you very much, and I welcome your questions. And you may, if you enjoyed this talk, you can maybe follow me on the multiple various different platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, and maybe tune in and to listen to the Be Well with MS podcast. I have interviewed multiple different specialists and professors in multiple sclerosis, and nutritionists, and exercise physiotherapists, etc., and also recorded some guided meditation to nourish our minds and to get that right balance of our brain activity and responses to the stresses that's never going to leave us away. There's always going to be stress in our life. It's very delusional to think that we're never going to be exposed by stress. It's always going to be. It's the response to that stress stimulus is the way forward. So thank you very much. Terry, over to you.
Dr. Straukiana, thank you so much. I was so happy to just be able to sit there and learn and listen and take it all in. And I definitely appreciated that guided meditation session. I personally feel like we've learned so much, but there are a few questions that were sent to us. I'm pretty sure you've covered it already, but the main one that we had was, is the brain body capable of taking on new routes around damaged nerve pathways?
Yes, we call this neuroplasticity, as I covered in the presentation. So this is the thing that we focus very much on the negativity, because it sort of stimulates us a bit more than anything else, But actually, I would like to reverse that sort of mindset and ask people to think about, okay, I've got maybe a few lesions, that's fine, but can we, improve somehow the existing healthy brain and improve that wiring, rewire, build new connections, improve the synapses, which is the sort of a structure of the neuron that communicates with each other. It's powerful if you do the right things. So nutrition, sleep, and exercise would reconnect your brain in a different manner that actually is going to nourish your brain.
Okay. Next question we've got in the chat from Nick Webb, who's retired early with MS fatigue at the age of 53 in 2019. He has MS, high cholesterol in mother's family, when young, very active, loads of sports, but obviously very limited now. Weight has gone up, but much exercise is limited due to fatigue and poor mobility. He's adjusted his diet, but has always eaten healthy. Any thoughts on that?
So to my understanding, this person has got a high cholesterol, and due to the MS symptoms, his life is now more sedentary. Is that correct?
Yeah, high cholesterol in the mother side of the family, yeah.
Yeah, so I think to start with, it's something that needs to be built up very gradually. It's Rome wasn't built in a day, I say to my people with MS, and cholesterol needs to be spot on. So if the raised cholesterol and you adjust the diet and cholesterol is still high, and if it's running in the family, so it must be some genetic predisposition of having hypercholesterolemia. So taking statins, reducing the cholesterol level, which has got an anti-inflammatory effect. Statins are being studied in multiple sclerosis and secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. So it's nothing worse than just living and ignoring the fact that it's obvious. So taking steps to improve that. And then the fatigue is something that a lot of people live with, but the fatigue is also lack of the exercise. So implementing some small steps of any activity that brings you a lot of joy, obviously will improve your energy level. But if you're going to overdo exercise and do things for England, of course it's going to cause more fatigue. So a lot of people get that into that perfectionist mindset and overdo things. We should practice minimalist, lifestyle, which is, implementing small steps before you get there and getting that right, to be honest. And doing that persistently will improve your energy and quality of life. It's evidence-based. I know it's challenging, it's limiting because of the pains and aches and fatigue, but small steps will help to get you at the right pathway.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, again, like I said, I'm just here listening, learning, taking it all in. Alan and Wallace, even though his question has now been answered, what happens to the body under stress? Why does it have a big impact on autoimmune?
So basically, stress is a sort of a concept. Behind the stress, there are so many physiological reactions in the body, that influences how the cells are behaving in our body. So from adrenal gland that is being released cortisol, which is a hormone. So the hormones, the metabolites, the cells, they all work as an orchestra. And if one is misaligned, it affects a cascade of the reactions in the body. As a consequence, we suffer. We get a lot of physical signs and symptoms. It disrupts our microbiome, good bacteria, bad bacteria. You lose that integrity in that single body that should function as it functions in a normal way. But the stress is an external stimulus. And what we need to do, we need to learn how we respond to the stress. That's how we're going to calm down the body functions.
And we got a question from Rosalind. Does all SPF creams block vitamin D? And what about spray forms of vitamin D? So I know that's 2-in-1.
Yeah. So SPF creams do block penetration of UV and stimulation of the vitamin D. And it's clear. I suggest that we probably should spend 15 minutes without cover day to day to get that good level of the vitamin D. But again, so many factors that are very much unknown what influences the vitamin D level in our body. The thickness of the skin, the color of the skin, maybe. So I suggest that checking the level, it would be a nice, good practice to know where you stand. But maybe spending 10 to 15 minutes if you're on holiday without a cream, that would be a good way. And then putting the cream after would be a good way of getting the right level. And then the second part of the question was around spray. So with this spray, the difficulty and challenges with the vitamin D as a spray form, it's good that it comes as an oil, but it's difficult to measure the concentration. You spray things like, how much of that you get into your mouth. Who knows? So in terms of the dosage is complex, although it says like one spray has got, but I don't know. It depends how hard you press. You get one amount of the spray that comes into your mouth, maybe you're just about to, so it's difficult to measure the concentration if it comes as a spray. Capsule would be better.
Heather has says that the doctor has prescribed her vitamin D in tablet form. She's celiac, I believe. Can this be changed to oil on prescription?
I think that if it comes by NHS, so it depends on which brands they're working with. Is there a change to capsules? I don't know, to be very honest, but I know that in the health shop you could get, capsules as an oily formulation of the vitamin D, but I don't know what's going on under prescription activity. It very much depends on the surgery, pharmacy that supplies, but I suggest that maybe when you go and collect your medicine or supplement, double check with the pharmacist whether you could get or they could order for you a different formulation which comes as a capsule rather than tablet.
We've got a question from Alex. Would you recommend positive stress for brain health? That's the first part. And the second part, which you want to answer the first part first?
I'm not sure whether I understood very well the first part of the question. So would I think that stress is a positive?
Would you recommend positive stress for brain health? I'll continue. It might, I don't know. If I
Can we clarify this question? Because I don't know what the positive stress means, to be honest. Stress can be positive, can be accepted as positive, because you get, if I interpret this question in a way that I interpret, under the stress we perform better. The sharpness of thinking improves. We on the spot, we perform better. The thinking process is improves. This more speedy decisions can come. But again, depends. Some people they freeze if they are exposed by this. Some are very performing amazingly well in a stressful situation. It depends on personality or character and previous experience, and perhaps mental health issues, maybe previous PTSD and stuff. Similar situations can actually worsen the whole mental health. So I don't know if I'm answering it. The one who asked the question, please come back and ask again. Maybe we're wrongly interpreting this question.
Yeah, definitely, Alex. If you're able to, if you can expand a bit more on that part of the question. The second part was, obviously, we know you recommended exercising. Thank you for that. Do you, or would you recommend short cold showers and or fasting?
Okay, we are coming to Wim Hof's phenomenon, which is having a sauna mixed with the cool showers. I don't know. It is not a strong evidence that we've got, but some emerging evidence that it can help with immunity. That means that we have certain growth hormones released in our body if we are exposed by sauna, for example, by 20-30%, and that could nourish our immune cells. You're less likely to have flu-type symptoms, less aches and pains. I guess it may have a placebo effect too, so it's not going to harm you. And also there are some studies to suggest that it can be anti-aging too. So the metabolism increases in these circumstances, a little shock to the body, whether it's heat and rise temperature. But imagine with MS, if some people develop Woodhoff's phenomenon, which is raised body temperature gives more symptoms. All the symptoms get worse. So you don't want to get into that sort of a situation. So really explorative work towards that. And if it's not worsening your MS, you could practice this. It's not going to harm you. If anything, it might help to prevent you from having flu-type symptoms throughout the winter time, autumn time.
Thank you for that. So Alex hasn't come back into the chat, and I'm so cautious of the time. But honestly, we had a lot of conversation around vitamin D levels in the chat, which was really good. A lot of people, really appreciated that that lead meditative session. Everybody said this is amazing. That was awesome. Thank you, Doctor. So good. Helped me focus. So inspiring. Thank you. Brilliant. Loved all of this. And honestly, thank you for joining us. Thank you for leading this amazing session. I have learned so much. I think one of the key points that outside of the educational factor was when you said, I'm stronger than MS, and MS doesn't identify who I am. And that is honestly so true. Because when we get that diagnosis on paper, sometimes it can be really daunting. And it's, I like that. And I'm more than likely to do a LinkedIn post later and tag you. But thank you so much. And we hope to be having a lot more conversations like this, where we focus on our health and living well with it. Everyone will get Dr. Agnes's links when we send out the recording. So make sure you follow her on all social media platforms. You are missing out if you have not heard one of her podcasts. Thank you, honestly, so much.
And that wraps up today's insightful episode of Be Well with MS podcast, where we dive into the world of MS and brain health. A big thank you to Terry Louise for sharing her expertise, for chairing the event, and also facilitating with the questions that come from the audience. We hope you found this discussion as enlightening as we have, that helps you on your journey towards better brain health and overall well-being with MS. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to our podcast of Be Well with MS. It's the best way to make sure you never miss our conversations where we explore different aspects of living well with MS. engage with amazing guests, and share valuable insights. Remember, every step on this journey is significant, no matter how small it may seem. We are here to support you every step of the way, and we would love to have you with us as we continue exploring topics that can make a real difference in the lives of those living with multiple sclerosis. Don't forget to join us for our next episode, where we will dwell into another important aspect of MS. We promise it's going to be just as informative and inspiring. Thank you for joining us today on Be Well with MS podcast. And until next time, take care, stay strong, and remember, you're not alone on this journey.